Chapter 71 We go to Nurmengard. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Short on cash. I'm waiting for your answer. If you've got the money, my hands are tied. Don't sweat it, Headmaster, Sebastian said, oozing confidence. I'm happy to invest in the school. 10,000 galleons. What do you say? Dumbledore beamed, reassured by Sebastian's commitment. 10,000 galleons would cover the work-study program for at least a year, otherwise, he'd be sweating about paying the professors. Before Dumbledore could respond, a calculating grin spread across Sebastian's face, making his stomach drop. That smile. It looked familiar, just like last year when Sebastian came begging for spell lessons. Headmaster, Sebastian said, his voice dripping with insincerity, considering my massive contribution, could you maybe do me a small favor? Oh. Here it comes. He'd already taught Sebastian his best stuff. He should have held something back. Dumbledore asked calmly, masking his unease. Tell me more. Headmaster, I just want an introduction to Gellert Grindelwald. The name hit Dumbledore like a punch. His eyes glazed over, lost in long dormant memories. Gellert? What did this kid want with Gellert? Could it be about the statute of secrecy? Dumbledore's heart sank, recalling the ideals he and Gellert had once fought for. His smile vanished. He leaned forward, suddenly imposing, his piercing gaze locked onto Sebastian through his half-moon spectacles. I need to know why, Sebastian. Suddenly, Sebastian felt like prey under the gaze of a predator, like stumbling upon a sleeping lion. His request had triggered the beast's instincts. It rose, fixed its eyes on him, ready to pounce. Simple, Sebastian said, meeting Dumbledore's gaze. I want to learn his spell, Fire Shield. I've heard about the Paris fire decades ago, and I'm fascinated by its power. I want to meet Grindelwald and learn it from him. Dumbledore's expression became heavy, conflicted. Sebastian, he said softly, Fire Shield is dangerous magic. Its power is hard to control. He looked earnestly at Sebastian, concern etched on his face. Why do you want to learn this dark art? Sebastian, you're already exceptionally talented. Frankly, I wasn't nearly as skilled at your age. An insatiable hunger for power will only lead you down a dark path. No, Headmaster, you misunderstand. I'm not chasing power for its own sake. Sebastian interrupted, cutting off Dumbledore's lecture. I don't see anything wrong with power itself. It's how you use it. Didn't Auror start using the killing curse against Death Eaters in the Second Wizarding War? That doesn't make them bad people. Sebastian smiled knowingly. I believe it's better to have magic and not need it, than need it and not have it. I'd rather learn a spell like that and never use it, but have it in my arsenal. Besides, I'm more interested in the knowledge behind the spell than the spell itself. Sebastian's expression was sincere, unwavering under Dumbledore's intense scrutiny. I think understanding that knowledge would elevate my magic to a whole new level. Fire Shield was a group attack spell that could distinguish friend from foe. He was determined to master it. He wasn't lying. His interest in the spell's underpinnings was far greater than just the spell itself. He'd come to Dumbledore out of respect, and because Grindelwald would probably be more receptive with Dumbledore present. After all, they were strangers. Grindelwald could just tell him to get lost. Seeing Dumbledore's silence, Sebastian pressed on. Headmaster, Voldemort could come back any time. We have to seize every chance to get stronger. If he isn't stopped, the wizarding world will live under his shadow forever. What kind of future is that? Sebastian's impassioned words gave Dumbledore pause. He searched Sebastian's eyes, finding no trace of obsession, no lust for power. His will was unshakable. He wouldn't be swayed. Maybe it was better to let him meet Gellert on the sly, or, better yet, go with him and maintain control of the situation. Thinking of that familiar face, Dumbledore sighed inwardly. Gellert, it's been too long. Seeing Dumbledore relax, sensing an opening, Sebastian upped the ante. Let's sweeten the deal. Sebastian said, puffed up with pride, 30,000 galleons. That's my investment in the school. It's not about the money. Dumbledore said, exasperated, why did this kid always do this? He wasn't that easily bought, but 30,000 galleons was certainly tempting. It would secure funding for the work-study program for years to come. He hesitated, then frowned. Even if we go to Nurmengard, I can't guarantee that Gellert will teach you. And there's the issue with the Austrian Ministry of Magic. Trouble? That was just the Wizarding World's version of this isn't going to be easy. He knew the drill. Just admit Grindelwald was your best bud, your brother from another mother. He held up 5 fingers. 50,000 galleons. Sebastian was confident. 50,000. Dumbledore couldn't say no to that. It would secure funding for the work-study program for the next 5 years. He had to agree. The students deserved it. Sure enough, Dumbledore hesitated for a moment, then nodded decisively. Okay, I'll help you persuade Gellert. And don't worry about the Austrian ministry. Sebastian grinned, satisfied. He'd won though. He could have sworn he saw a hint of resentment flicker across Dumbledore's face when he heard 50,000. Sebastian frowned. Was Grindelwald's appearance fee higher than he expected? Was Dumbledore jealous? Before Sebastian could dwell on it, Dumbledore stood up, Fawkes settling on his shoulder. Dumbledore held out his arm and smiled at Sebastian. Come on, let's go. To Nurmengard. Chapter 72, Meeting After Half a Century. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Nurmengard loomed on the mountain peak, a grim, giant beast guarding its lair, the tower sword, its thick black stone walls radiating a palpable sense of oppression. No guards stood watch, only a massive iron door, etched with complex runes and protective spells, pulsed with terrifying power. Thick clouds and fog swirled around the castle, seeming to flow with a life of their own, shrouding Nurmengard in an air of mystery and dread. Dumbledore's heart clenched as he read the familiar inscription above the gate. For the greater good. He thought he could face this place with composure, tell Sebastian about his past here, but Sebastian was the last thing on his mind now. A flood of memories washed over him, stirring a maelstrom of emotions. 46 years. It had been that long since he last saw Gellert. Was he all right? Dumbledore took a steadying breath and moved forward, bracing himself to confront those long-buried memories. He walked slowly towards the gate, each footstep echoing on the deserted mountaintop, a conversation with the past. He reached out and touched the iron door, bristling with powerful magic. The cold touch brought back memories of fighting alongside Gellert. They'd yearned for a new world then, a world without secrets, without limits. But their shared obsession had destroyed everything. The iron gate creaked open, and Dumbledore stepped inside Nurmengard. The interior was just as suffocating. Long corridors stretched into the darkness, lined with cold stone walls, punctuated by the flickering light of the occasional torch. The firelight illuminated deep scratches on the walls, a testament to the loneliness and struggles that had played out here. Dumbledore walked slowly, unsure whether to quicken or slow his pace. The stairs to the upper floor seemed endless, his legs heavy, each step an effort. Finally, he reached a small room. The door was ajar, spilling a faint light into the corridor. Dumbledore pushed the door open and saw the unsettlingly familiar figure of Gellert Grindelwald. Grindelwald sat quietly on a bare cot, covered by a thin, worn blanket. His eyes were calm and deep, as if he'd seen everything. He looked up at the old man who'd entered, a faint smile playing on his lips, tinged with complex emotions. Albus, you got my letter? Good. You came to see me. I've been waiting for you. For a long, long time. It's been 46 years. Dumbledore's eyes stung. The gaunt figure before him seemed to superimpose itself over the handsome, charismatic one he remembered. They'd been friends, lovers, comrades, rivals. Now, time had brought them together again. Dumbledore stepped closer, his voice low and measured. Gellert, it's been a long time. Grindelwald smiled, patted the hard cot beside him, and offered Dumbledore a seat. Come, sit. It's a bit Spartan here, not even a sheet. I hope you don't mind. Though it's humble, the view from the window is quite nice. I often stand and watch. Watch the sunrise, the sunset, the clouds, the rain. The other night, the sky was full of stars. I stood there for hours, and when I got tired, I just leaned against the wall and slept. But mostly I sit here and watch my neighbor. Look, Albus. Grindelwald raised a hand, pointing to the corner of the ceiling, where a spider sat patiently in its web. I enjoy watching it spin, round and round, always busy. Though there aren't enough flies around here, so it goes hungry sometimes. Funny, isn't it? We were so focused on getting ahead, we never noticed the simple things. Now that it's quiet, I find these common things so interesting. I've written you many letters to share these wonders, but I never received a reply. He turned his head, studying Dumbledore sitting beside him, and smiled wistfully. Time flies, Albus. In the blink of an eye, you've grown so old, your beard so long. We're not as lively as we used to be. I remember you used to talk a lot. Listening to Grindelwald's rambling, Dumbledore felt a sense of calm settle over him. He smiled at Grindelwald, a smile of regret. Yes. Sebastian stood in the shadows outside the door, silent and still. This moment belonged to the two reunited men. He listened quietly as they reminisced, with no intention of intruding. Sebastian sensed that Grindelwald's magic was still potent, but his body was frail, almost skeletal. Sebastian's thoughts drifted, wondering what kind of man Grindelwald really was. Young Grindelwald had undoubtedly been a charismatic, brilliant wizard, pale blonde hair, both aristocratic and cold. His eyes, cold, blue, deep and sharp, could seem to pierce your very soul. Under his gaze, you felt nothing could be hidden. Remembering this, Sebastian looked carefully at the man before him. Grindelwald's face was gaunt, his eyes sunken, a stark contrast to the handsome youth he'd been. But Sebastian didn't judge by appearances, didn't dismiss Grindelwald because he was old and grey. He was a man of great vision and talent, a genius intelligence, a ruthless determination. He could meticulously plan to achieve his goals, stopping at nothing to reach them. After all, he'd single-handedly made the American Ministry of Magic dance to his tune, and he possessed incredible personal magnetism. Even now, many members of his old movement still missed him, waiting for his command. Suddenly, voices from inside the room broke Sebastian's train of thought. Albus, the young man has been standing outside the door for some time. Why don't you invite him in and introduce us? Hello, Mr. Grindelwald, Sebastian said, stepping into the room and bowing slightly. I'm Sebastian Swann, Professor of Muggle Studies at Hogwarts. It's a pleasure to meet you. Grindelwald sat on the bed, his piercing eyes scrutinizing Sebastian. After a long pause, he smiled. A very impressive young man, with a brilliant magic, much like I was in my youth. I know why you're here, the purpose hidden deep in your heart. The corners of his mouth stretched wider, as if he'd just pulled off a prank. Unfortunately, you will be disappointed. Because I don't talk to childish people. Chapter 73, Give the Two Old Men a Shock in the Muggle World. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sebastian nearly choked on his ginger ale. Naive? Seriously, get a grip, he thought. This is Grindelwald, that heartthrob. What happened to the charisma? If the ever-smiling Dumbledore hadn't been sitting right there, Sebastian never would have connected this shriveled little dude to the legendary Dark Lord. Honestly, before coming here, he'd imagined a million different ways this meeting could go. But he never expected a childish jab right off the bat. Even with all the griping, Sebastian was still taken aback by Grindelwald's power. There wasn't a trace of mind reading. Is this prophecy? What's he seeing, Star? Come on. Being able to predict the future was pretty impressive, though. He smiled and asked calmly, so, what did you see? Grindelwald glanced at Dumbledore, then back at Sebastian with a knowing smirk. Some of your endeavors in the Muggle world. You're planning to blow the statute of secrecy wide open, aren't you? Sebastian couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. So, he had a reputation. Just a glimpse and Grindelwald pegged him as wanting to scrap the statute. Was this the feigned power to see into people's hearts he'd heard about? He'd come just to learn some spells, and before they even started, Grindelwald saw his intentions. This was getting tricky. Dumbledore's face had definitely fallen, but old man Grindelwald was just smiling, like he was enjoying the show. Sebastian took a deep breath and decided to lay it all on the table. Dumbledore already knew, so there was no point in sugarcoating it. He might as well be up front and save everyone the song and dance later. Besides, ditching the statute was a dream these two shared back in the day. If he could get them on his side, things would be a whole lot easier. In a flash, Sebastian had a plan. He pulled up a chair and sat down opposite them. I thought you'd be all for breaking the statute. I am on board with the idea. Otherwise, I wouldn't waste a word on you, even if you brought Albus. For a second, Grindelwald's face showed open disdain. But, making a movie in the Muggle world? He sneered. You call that a plan? Pathetic. Pathetic? Yours didn't exactly work out, either. If you ask me, suggesting wizards just waltz in and take over Muggles is what's truly pathetic. Oh, really? Grindelwald was still smiling, but he clearly didn't take Sebastian seriously. Tell me, kid. What makes your plan so brilliant? Convince me, and I might just teach you a spell or two. Seeing Grindelwald's dismissive attitude, Sebastian dropped the pretense and went for it. He was at his best when convincing people with logic. And with a guy who'd been holed up for half a century, sometimes you just had to hit him with facts until he shut up and listened. Before Sebastian could even start, Dumbledore jumped in, interrupting the argument. Sebastian, are you really going to break the statute? You know the wizarding world has been through 2 wars. It's fragile, and it can't handle another shock. Seeing Dumbledore's worried look, Sebastian signaled him to hold on. Then, he pulled out a square gadget. There's a saying in the Muggle world, know your enemy and know yourself, and you will win every battle. I have to ask you too, do you really understand Muggles? Sebastian pointed to the item on the ground. What you're looking at is a revolutionary invention, the computer. Unfortunately, there's no electricity or internet here, so I can't show you what it can really do. Seeing the weird contraption, Grindelwald was instantly intrigued. He'd been stuck in Nurmengard since 45. He truly had no idea what this thing was. With computers and the internet, someone in the UK can contact someone in the US in seconds. They can text, send pictures, or even video chat. Headmaster Dumbledore, you might not know, but Harry's aunt has one of these in her house. What does that tell you? It means this tech is becoming common in Muggle homes. It lets people all over the world communicate, without worrying about distance or time. After Sebastian's explanation, Grindelwald's face darkened, his prophetic powers flared, and he realized the kid wasn't exaggerating. He saw so many uses for computers. They weren't just for talking, Muggles could use them to learn, fast. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed as he saw Sebastian pull out a black rectangle. He recognized it, it had appeared in his visions, too. Another tool for Muggles to talk and connect. Grindelwald felt a weight in his chest. He had no idea what the Muggle world had become. He thought of the wizarding world, still using owls to deliver messages, and he felt a pang of unease. What was the wizarding world's future? Watching Sebastian, he realized something. Every generation had its own job. His time was over. Since this kid was set on breaking the statute, maybe he should just listen to the plan. Slowly, he calmed down and gave Sebastian his full attention. Seeing both old men listening so intently, Sebastian felt like he was back in Muggle studies class and grew more confident. He pulled out a bunch of photos, enlarged them, and walked the 2 men through them, one by one. Are these magical items? Do they look more magical than magic? Don't underestimate Muggles. They might not have magic, but they're smart. Sebastian smirked. Honestly, if I walked around London, I'd feel like the Muggle world was way ahead of the wizarding one. He straightened his face and looked at Dumbledore intently. Headmaster, I'm worried. At the rate Muggle technology is advancing, in less than 20 years, the sky will be full of their satellites. There will be billions of cameras everywhere. The wizarding world won't be able to hide anymore. Sebastian shifted gears, his voice getting more intense. So, instead of waiting for the inevitable, we should take charge. Take charge ourselves. Chapter 74. Have you heard of nuclear deterrence theory? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dumbledore's face was etched with worry. He'd spent his life immersed in the wizarding world and hadn't visited the Muggle world in ages. He'd never imagined that in just a few years, Muggles would come up with so many newfangled gadgets. The Muggle world Sebastian described was unrecognizable from the one he remembered. He suddenly felt a surge of gratitude that Sebastian was now the professor of Muggle studies at Hogwarts. That way, the young wizards wouldn't grow up so close-minded. He paused, then said, "I get what you're driving at. Gellert mentioned you were filming a movie in the Muggle world. Can you fill me in on that?" Sebastian smiled, his confidence shining through. "Before I explain that, I need to clarify something about how we view Muggles." "Muggles? What's there to explain?" Grindelwald was intrigued. He was curious to hear what the young man had to say about Muggles. "Wizards tend to lump all Muggles together into one big group. But the average Muggle and the Muggle government are two totally different animals. We need to treat them that way. The Muggle government hates anything they can't control, so they try to keep their hands in everything. But the average Muggle just wants to live their life. They don't really care about what the government thinks." Seeing the two old men deep in thought, Sebastian smiled and continued. "The war between wizards and Muggles happened a long time ago. Nowadays, Muggles think of wizards as just something out of a storybook. You could say Muggles don't harbor any ill will toward wizards anymore. They're just really curious. Once we understand that, our main goal is to use that curiosity to get Muggles on our side. So, we need to ride the wave, the trend the Muggle government is already pushing. Do you know what the big problem is in the Muggle world right now?" Sebastian paused for effect, building the suspense. Without giving them time to answer, he revealed, "Too much talent. Since World War II, Muggles have become so talented that they're practically drowning in it. But they still need a ton of people doing the grunt work to keep their society running. So, the Muggle government came up with a solution: entertainment." Seeing their confused expressions, Sebastian elaborated, "Basically, the Muggle government wants people to spend all their time being entertained. If people are constantly distracted, their intelligence drops, making them easier to manage. Plus, it solves the talent surplus problem. It's a win-win. They can kill two birds with one stone." Sebastian knew that these policies would usher in the age of entertainment. The next 20 or 30 years would be a golden age for the entertainment industry. That's why he wanted to jump on this bandwagon, pouring all his energy into developing wizard films and publishing in the Muggle world. He'd use movies and TV to carefully craft, shape, and promote the image of wizards, embedding it in the public consciousness. He wanted to win over Muggles, get them to like wizards. Life in Muggle society is all about pressure and stress. Between tough jobs, complicated relationships, and constant disappointments, Muggles are desperate to escape, to lighten their load. That's why the fantasy world has become a haven for their souls. More and more Muggle writers are putting pen to paper, creating fantastical worlds, and of all those worlds, the magical one is the most appealing. Muggles can temporarily escape reality and experience endless possibilities and freedom. To win over these two old wizards, Sebastian went all out, patiently explaining his plans for the film and TV company and why making movies mattered. Grindelwald scoffed, cutting him off. "I told you he was naive. If the wizarding world just existed in movies and on TV, the Muggle government wouldn't care. But what do you think those governments will do once the wizarding world is fully exposed? You can't be naive enough to think they'll want to coexist peacefully with wizards." Sebastian didn't panic. He smiled and offered his own take. "The smart Muggles already have a strategy for that: divide, conquer, and suppress. The Muggle government isn't a single entity. It's made up of different political parties, each with their own agenda. And each party is made up of individual Muggles, individuals." Sebastian's smile was knowing. Everyone wants something. If they're driven by greed, they can be managed. We can support the Muggle parties that are friendly to wizards and help them get into power. And as for the unfriendly parties..." Dumbledore cut him off. He admitted that Sebastian's plan was impressive, even tempting, but the young man's approach to politics was dangerous. From what Sebastian was saying, he intended to eliminate the hostile Muggle parties. He felt he had to warn Sebastian before the young man went too far. "Sebastian, that's a dangerous idea. You need to respect life. If you lose sight of that, your soul will be at risk. Albus, Grindelwald said, defending Sebastian, I think this kid's onto something. Sebastian, is it? I'm starting to like you. Seeing the two old men about to bicker again, Sebastian quickly used magic to hang a world map on the wall. Hold that thought. Do you know about the theory of nuclear deterrence? That he smiled mysteriously and pointed to a country on the map. We all know that the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy is followed most strictly in America. That's because their Muggle government has the mentality of a bunch of bandits. They've always seen themselves as the top dogs and try to boss everyone else around. But because of nuclear deterrence, they're forced to sit down and negotiate with other countries. So, when the time comes to break the statute of secrecy, we need to make sure those unfriendly Muggle parties, those bandits, know. We in the wizarding world have our own nuclear weapons, human-shaped nuclear weapons. That way, we can bring everyone back to the negotiating table. Sebastian stood tall, staring at the two old men with burning eyes. Headmaster, your concerns are valid. I'm still young, so I need an experienced wizard like you to guide me, to keep me in check. Mr. Grindelwald, you're a legend in the wizarding world, and you've always wanted to break the statute of secrecy. I'm asking you to join us in breaking the statute. Sebastian held out his right hand to them. Be my partner. Chapter 75 The Stubborn Old Man's Spell Teaching. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Pity, even though Sebastian's voice was gentle but firm, it felt like every word struck a chord deep inside. His expression was also captivating, the kind that could easily sway someone's convictions, but the two old wizards were seasoned, not as easily swayed as some young hothead. They were lost in thought, and it was impossible to tell what they were thinking. Sebastian held out his hand, but no one seemed to notice. A hush fell over the room. Luckily, Sebastian wasn't one to be embarrassed. He just smiled, withdrew his hand, and figured these two were sharp cookies, the kind who only believe what they see and figure out for themselves. He hadn't expected to win them over with just a few words. Recruiting them was more like planting a seed. Seeing them so engrossed in their own thoughts, Sebastian decided not to interrupt. Instead, he pulled out his magically expanded bag and began unloading items one by one: brand new bedding, magic lamps, a magic TV, a multifunctional massage chair. In no time, he transformed the room. Sebastian was thinking clearly, even if these two don't join my cause, I still need to learn magic today, so, I'll fix this room up to make Grindelwald comfortable. You catch more flies with honey than vinegar. Hopefully, Grindelwald won't be a pain when teaching me spells. Grindelwald watched Sebastian bustling about and smirked. Boy, stop your fussing. Material things mean nothing to me. If you think you can buy me, you're barking up the wrong tree. Besides, I'm not going anywhere with you. He glanced at Dumbledore. I'm just a prisoner in Nurmengard, after all. Sebastian had to resist rolling his eyes. Prisoner, more like a self-imposed exile. The protective spells around Nurmengard might look impressive, but they wouldn't hold a wizard of Grindelwald's caliber. He'd been waiting for an invitation. An invitation from Dumbledore. Why else would he have looked at Dumbledore just now? As Sebastian's thoughts raced, Grindelwald changed the subject. I like your spirit. I might just teach you a spell. Try a fiery curse, Sebastian. Sebastian pulled out his wand and levitated a piece of parchment. In an instant, orange flames erupted from one corner, slowly consuming the entire sheet. Grindelwald was impressed. He had never seen fiendfire become more docile than an ordinary flame under Sebastian's hands. Your control is quite exceptional. However, I'll only teach you the basics of a fire shield. Whether you learn it, when you learn it, and how well you learn it is all up to you. Grindelwald settled back to get comfortable. The principle is simple. You need to let your will become the fire's will. Not control it, but merge your will with it, making the fierce fire intelligent. That way, the spell will recognize friend from foe, and those who share your will won't be harmed. With that, Grindelwald fell silent, a smile playing on his lips. That's it. How do you merge your will with the fire? He left out the most crucial part. Sebastian was speechless. He'd been hanging on every word, and then it just stopped. This guy is a real tease. But then, he remembered the power of will. It was similar to the power of love. Dumbledore was always going on about the power of love. He thought about the protective spell Lily had cast on Harry. Wasn't that ancient magic that incorporated Lily's love? Sebastian felt a surge of confidence. You think you're holding back on me? I'll figure it out anyway. The tall towers of Nurmengard cast long shadows in the setting sun, like a giant hand engulfing the surrounding wilderness in an eerie darkness. After closing the heavy door, Sebastian glanced back at Grindelwald's room. The stubborn old coot hadn't left his cage after all. Unmoved by Sebastian's persuasion, Sebastian sighed and turned to face Dumbledore. Grindelwald was waiting for Dumbledore's invitation, but what was Dumbledore waiting for? Their old feud was so confusing. Sebastian. Dumbledore's voice was flat, revealing nothing. Do you want Gellert to come out and become a human WMD in the wizarding world? Sebastian quickly caught up and walked alongside Dumbledore. I just want a little extra insurance. After all, Mr. Grindelwald is a pretty big deal. Sebastian smiled. I hate war. I'm a peace-loving businessman. Swann alchemy focuses on everyday necessities, and war would hit us hard. But as a wizard, a powerful wizard, I'm not afraid of war. I like what Muggles say. Sebastian's voice was no longer dull but resolute and strong. Peace comes from strength, not weakness. If it ever comes to that, I'll become a WMD in the eyes of the Muggle government for the sake of the wizarding world. He waved to Dumbledore in the setting sun. Headmaster, I'm not going back to Hogwarts with you. Harry's still at Severus's place, waiting for me to pick him up and take him home. See you later. Chapter 76. Love you, Mom. I am very happy now. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Snape's place. After learning the theory, Harry began practicing. He stood before the cauldron, focused on the potion's color changes, while Snape stood nearby, coldly observing. Just being next to Snape made Harry a little shaky. This was nothing like studying with Sebastian. Professor Snape's face was an ice block. Are you following the steps correctly? Harry didn't dare say a word, didn't dare ask a thing, neither spoke, and the silence was suffocating. Around noon, Snape turned and left. Watching him go, Harry's heart sank. He replayed every step in his mind. Was the order of ingredients wrong? Was something weighed incorrectly? He went over every detail, his hands trembling slightly. Were his mistakes so obvious that Professor Snape couldn't stand it? Don't go, Professor, I think I can still fix this potion, Just as Harry was getting anxious, Snape returned carrying a plate. It held a few basic-looking sandwiches. Snape placed the plate in front of Harry and said, You brewed a decent potion. If this were Hogwarts, I'd give you 10 points. Eat. You need the energy. We'll continue after you're done. If Harry had been nervous facing Snape alone at first, after half a day, he realized Professor Snape was actually a softy underneath. He was so relieved that he realized he was starving. Thank you, Professor. Harry grabbed a sandwich and took a huge bite, his face immediately turning red. So dry. How could anyone? Does Professor Snape eat this stuff every day? No wonder he doesn't smile much. Who could smile after eating this all the time? Harry choked down the sandwich in silence. Unseen by Harry, Snape's face remained cold, but a hint of warmth flickered beneath the surface. Before he knew it, evening arrived. Harry looked at the potion he'd made, a sense of accomplishment washing over him. He wanted to praise Professor Snape but hesitated, offering silent praise instead. That's what a potions master is, that's Professor Snape's level, Just a few tweaks to the textbook steps made the whole process much easier, but studying was exhausting. Harry rubbed his rumbling stomach, a hint of anticipation rising. When's Sebastian coming to get me? I really don't want dinner at Professor Snape's. His sandwiches are way too dry. In the days that followed, Harry stopped asking Sebastian for rides since Snape connected his fireplace to the Fleur network. Now, Harry spent his days learning potions with Snape and his nights practicing spells in the dueling room with Sebastian until they were both wiped out. His potions skills were improving rapidly, and his spellcasting was getting better every day. The days flew by, and before he knew it, it was July 31st. "Harry, get up. Wash up, eat breakfast. We're going to the amusement park today." That it was Harry's birthday, and Mia had taken the day off. Ever since she'd learned Harry had never been to an amusement park, she'd been determined to take him for a great time. After breakfast, Mia and Sebastian took Harry to a London amusement park. Going as Muggles, it was Harry's first time at a place like this, and everything was overwhelming. The giant Ferris wheel turned slowly. The carousel went up and down with the music. Roller coasters flew through the air. Kids screamed and laughed. So, this was where Dudley went every year for his birthday. Harry, practically bouncing with excitement, grabbed Mia's hand and headed for the roller coaster line. He'd wanted to ride one forever. Every year, Dudley would brag about how fearless he was, saying he could ride the roller coaster without even blinking. Harry wanted to prove he was braver than Dudley. Once the seatbelts were buckled, the roller coaster moved forward slowly, rising with a mechanical clicking sound. Harry's eyes widened, gripping the armrests, feeling every gear turn. Finally, the car reached the top, and the view opened up, showing the entire amusement park. "Ready, Harry?" Sebastian asked, grinning. Harry was about to answer when the roller coaster plunged down. His heart leaped into his throat, and his body felt like it was flying. The pull of gravity was an incredible rush. He couldn't help but scream. The wind whistled in his ears, mixed with screams and cheers. He felt refreshed and free. Before nightfall, Sebastian and the others returned to Swan Manor. Jeff had already set up the party. Colorful balloons hung from the ceiling, and a long table overflowed with food. A huge birthday cake sat in the center, covered in colorful candy and candles. Just as Harry was taking it all in, the door opened again. The first person to enter was a gentle middle-aged man, his face kind and smiling. Although dressed elegantly, the passage of time was etched into his face. Close behind was a tall, burly giant who filled the entire doorway. He had a thick beard and shouted as he entered, "Harry. Long time no see. Last time I saw you, you were just a little furball, no bigger than a kitten." Harry looked at the cake, made especially for him. The flickering candles reflected the smiling faces around him, and his heart swelled. Sebastian and Mia's thoughtful planning, plus Lupin and Hagrid arriving, made him feel cared for and loved. The loneliness he had once felt seemed to vanish. He took a piece of cake and nibbled on it. The sweetness melted in his mouth, washing away the bitterness he had felt before. So sweet. Sweeter than any birthday cake he'd ever had. Harry knew he finally had a real home. This birthday wasn't just his 11th. It was a brand new start. The party went on late into the night. Later, Harry sat on his bed, looking out at the night sky, his mind racing. He pulled out a framed photo, a gift from Mia. Looking at her smiling face, Harry whispered, "Mia, you said you were sorry you weren't my godmother. But in my heart, you already are." His eyes moved to the figure beside Mia, his mother. He stared at the photo until he grew tired, then he held it close and lay down. "Love you, Mom," he said happily before closing his eyes. "I am really happy now." Chapter 77 The Dark and Dirty Leaky Cauldron. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Since everyone had such a great time last night, Sebastian just invited them all to crash at Swan Manor. Lupin slipped out early the next morning. Sebastian led Harry and Hagrid to the manor gates, facing the empty street. He raised his wand like he was hailing a cab. Before Harry could figure out what was going on, a dark blur sped towards them and screeched to a halt. The door swung open and a conductor hopped out. "Welcome aboard the night bus. The night bus, taking you anywhere you need to go. I'm Stan Shunpike, your conductor." "A bus?" Harry rubbed his eyes, still not believing what he was seeing. Weren't they going to Diagon Alley? Why not just use the Flu network? Taking a bus? That didn't feel very magical. Dazed, Harry followed Sebastian onto the bus, found a window seat, and buckled up. He overheard Hagrid booming to the conductor. 3 to the Leaky Cauldron. Right on the way. 5 silver sickles each. As soon as he finished, the night bus lurched forward. The ride was surprisingly smooth, but the scenery whipping by made Harry a little queasy. "Harry," Sebastian said, noticing his expression and smiling reassuringly. "The night bus is a smooth ride, nothing to worry about." It's a convenient way to get to Diagon Alley. Not every wizard can apparate. And some just don't like the feeling. The night bus is for wizards like that. Just stick out your wand and hail it, like I did. Just then, Harry saw the driver hurtling down the road, obstacles swerving out of their way. His jaw dropped. He wanted to apologize for his earlier thoughts. This was magic. But what about the muggles on the street? Could they see it? Before he could ask, the night bus screeched to a halt. Here we are, Sebastian said, patting Harry on the shoulder. Leaky Cauldron, Charing Cross Road. Harry stepped off the bus and spotted a tiny pub sandwiched between a bookstore and a record shop. A weathered sign creaked above the door, emblazoned with the Leaky Cauldron in large letters. Few people were on the street, and those passing by seemed oblivious to the pub's existence. Harry followed Sebastian and Hagrid inside, met by a wave of beer, tobacco, and damp wood. The lighting was dim, with old oil lamps casting a faint yellow glow. The wooden floorboards groaned underfoot, the walls were thick with dust, and the corners were stained. It looked like the place hadn't been cleaned in ages. Harry frowned, a little disappointed. This wasn't the bright, bustling pub he'd imagined, dark and dingy. That was Harry's first impression of the Leaky Cauldron. He stuck close to Hagrid, who seemed right at home. Everyone knew him and greeted him warmly. Harry's eyes darted around, taking it all in. He'd never imagined a pub like this existed in London, a place just for wizards. Some customers were whispering, others were sipping strange, steaming drinks, and still others were staring blankly at odd magical objects. Suddenly, Harry heard Hagrid say his name to the barkeep, who rushed out, looking excited, and shook his hand. Mr. Potter, welcome to the Leaky Cauldron. Harry shifted uncomfortably. After his last trip to Diagon Alley, he knew he was kind of a celebrity in the wizarding world, but Sebastian had explained that his mom was the one who defeated Voldemort. Harry didn't feel like he deserved any credit. That's why he wore a hat today, trying to hide his scar, and now Hagrid had announced him the second they walked in. Hagrid probably tried to keep his voice down, but he was so loud that everyone in the pub could hear him anyway. Mr. Potter, an honor to meet you. Suddenly, a line formed in front of Harry, everyone eager to shake the hand of the legendary boy who lived. Harry looked to Sebastian for help, but he was just sitting on a chair, watching with an amused expression. Emma Mr. P.P. Potter, S. Sir. P.P. pleased to meet you. Harry turned to see a pale young man stuttering nervously in front of him. Professor Quirrell, Hagrid greeted him quickly. Harry, this is a professor from Hogwarts. A Hogwarts professor? What did he teach? Harry was surprised. Could someone with a stutter really be a professor? Did he have some special talent, like Snape being a potions whiz? How could he even teach? Harry suppressed his questions and shook Quirrell's hand politely. Hello, Professor Quirrell. Nice to meet you. Just as Harry was about to ask something, Sebastian gently steered him towards Hagrid. Harry, you've got a lot to do. Go with Hagrid for now. Hagrid's here on Hogwarts business, so don't keep him. And by the way, you missed 2 potions classes. Remember to pick up some potion ingredients later. Sebastian winked. Bring your teacher a little something tomorrow, and he won't give you too much trouble. The rarer the better. If you're short on cash, just put it on my tab. Sebastian turned and grabbed Quirrell, who was about to leave. Professor Quirrell, long time no see. I heard you spent the last year traveling with Muggles. Come on, this one's on me. As future colleagues, we need to catch up. Watching the 2 professors walk off, Harry smiled at Hagrid and followed him to the back of the pub. Chapter 78 Harry, Hagrid's thinking is a little unusual. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Harry followed Hagrid across the bar and into a small, walled-in patio. All that was there was a trash can. Hagrid pulled out a small red umbrella and started counting bricks on the wall. Harry, Sebastian said you've been to Diagon Alley before. But this is your first time at the Leaky Cauldron, right? Usually, young wizards in the Muggle world come this way to get to Diagon Alley. Now, watch closely. Hagrid tapped a brick 3 times with his red umbrella. Harry held his breath, staring at the ordinary-looking wall. To Harry's amazement, the wall began to tremble. The bricks seemed to be pushed from behind, sliding apart, each brick seemed alive, moving in an orderly fashion with a low grinding sound. Once the last few bricks were in place, an archway large enough for Hagrid to walk through appeared, revealing the familiar sight of Diagon Alley. "Welcome to Diagon Alley, Harry." Hagrid patted him on the head. "Oh, almost forgot, this is for you." Hagrid rummaged in his pocket, pulled out a letter, and handed it to Harry. "The Hogwarts acceptance letter should have come by owl. Open it up and see what you need." Harry eagerly opened the letter and read it carefully. School uniforms, textbooks, a cauldron. He read the list over and over, then looked up at Hagrid. "Hagrid, any suggestions on pets?" "I've got everything else." "Pets?" Hagrid chuckled. "You came to the right guy. First off, scratch toads. They're so last century. Cats and owls. I'd say go with an owl. They can deliver your mail, and a lot of wizards keep them." "Deliver mail?" Harry was confused. "Aunt Mia gave me a two-way mirror. She said I could contact her through it." "A two-way mirror? That's some advanced magic," Hagrid muttered, surprised. "But they only work between two people. You'll be making plenty of friends, so you definitely need an owl." As they talked, they approached a strange-looking building. Hagrid lowered his voice. "Before we get your pet, we need to stop at Gringotts." He patted his chest. "I'm here to pick something up." He stepped forward, leading Harry toward the entrance of Gringotts. As they passed the gate, Hagrid pointed at the words inscribed there. "Gringotts is run by goblins. They always think everyone's after their gold. That's why they put the warning up," he said with a twist of his lips. "Only a lunatic would try robbing Gringotts." "Why, Hagrid?" "Because Gringotts' vaults are deep underground, guarded by dragons." Hagrid's eyes lit up at the mention of dragons. "Fire dragons, the cutest, most beautiful, and most powerful creatures in the world. I'd love to raise one." A question mark appeared in Harry's head. Fire dragons? Cute? Beautiful? How did those three words even go together? Harry glanced up at Hagrid's huge frame and pictured the scene. Hagrid, holding a ferocious dragon in his arms, cooing, "You're such a cute little thing, Fluffy." Somehow, the image didn't seem that weird. He shuddered. Hagrid definitely thought differently from everyone else. Who else would call a dragon cute? Harry shook his head, clearing the thoughts, and followed Hagrid into the grand hall of Gringotts. Harry was nearly blinded by the light when he stepped inside. He thought Swan Manor was something, but this place was even more extravagant. The lobby was vast and bright, with smooth marble floors, towering columns, and a dome inlaid with sparkling gems. Light streamed through the stained glass windows, making everything glitter with gold. "Now that's what I call rich," Harry thought to himself, then looked at the goblins in the hall. These are goblins. They're not even as tall as me. Harry looked closer. The goblins were small, with pale skin and sharp features. Each wore an elaborate uniform and held a quill, scribbling on parchment. After Hagrid spoke with one of the goblins, they hopped into a cart. Led by a goblin, it sped down the tracks. When the cart stopped in front of a vault door, Harry felt a little disappointed. It felt like a roller coaster, maybe even more intense. "Your key." Harry quickly handed the key Hagrid had given him to the goblin. With a series of clicks, the goblin opened the vault door, revealing what was inside. Harry gasped at the sight of the piles of gold galleons. He had no idea he was this rich. Grinning, he pulled out the wallet Mia had given him and started scooping handfuls of gold into it, counting as he went. "This is for a bag for Aunt Mia, this is for a watch for Sebastian, right, and Professor Snape. He gave me that bottle of golden potion for my birthday. Aunt Mia said it was super rare and brings good luck. I definitely need to get him something." When Sebastian picked up Harry, Harry was holding a birdcage with a pure white snowy owl inside. "Is that from Hagrid?" "Yeah, I named her Hedwig. She's beautiful. Take good care of her." "What about the gift for Professor Snape?" "Gillyweed is a really rare potion ingredient. Professor Snape will be thrilled." Sebastian grinned as Harry presented the potion ingredients like a treasure. Interesting, bought with Potter's money. What will Severus's face look like when he finds out? Happy? Disgusted? Either way, it'll be priceless. I almost want to snap a picture with my magic camera. Sebastian patted Harry on the shoulder and led him toward the fireplace in Diagon Alley. Oh yeah, Quirrell's going to Gringotts today. Looks like that poor guy is about to be possessed by Voldemort. Well, Hogwarts is about to get interesting. I guess we're going to Hogwarts tomorrow. Hee, the Sorcerer's Stone, here I come. Chapter 79, Tricking the Sorting Hat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After breakfast, Sebastian apparat to Hogwarts via the fireplace. The air in the office was stale, like it hadn't been aired out in ages. Clean sweep, he said, casting a spell. The window flew open, and the musty air and dust swirled out. Obeying Sebastian's magic, he took a deep breath of the fresh air, noticing some changes to the Hogwarts grounds. A brand new row of greenhouses sparkled in the sun at the edge of the Forbidden Forest. Not bad, star. Looks like Dumbledore wasted no time putting that money to good use with the work-study program. Professor Sprout really moves fast. The greenhouses are already up and ready. Now all that's left is to get the students on board and get to work. Sebastian checked his watch and saw it was almost time to meet Dumbledore. He headed towards the headmaster's office. He entered, surprised to find it empty. Did Dumbledore stand me up? That's a first, star. Just as Sebastian was wondering, the portrait of a former headmaster on the wall stirred to life. A wizard with a goatee addressed Sebastian. Dumbledore told me to let you know. He got an urgent request from Fudge this morning, so he had to run to the ministry. But he should be back soon, so just hang tight. Great, he's not here. How boring, star. Sebastian plopped down and started chatting with the portrait of Phineas Nigellus Black. Just when he was about to lose it from boredom, the sorting hat on the shelf spoke. Hey Slytherin, what's with the Gryffindor vibe? Sebastian's eyes lit up. That's right, star. This is Gryffindor's freakin' hat. And I'm Gryffindor's heir. In that case, will the sorting hat do me a solid, star. He'd always wondered, like many people, if there was some behind-the-scenes stuff going on with the sorting hat. Now he had a golden opportunity to find out. I've been recognized by Gryffindor, he began, his voice eager. I have Gryffindor's inheritance. For the sake of Gryffindor, can you do me a small favor? Sebastian braced himself, casting subtle shielding charms for protection. Well, that explains it, the sorting hat said, finally catching on upon seeing the shield charm. You've got the Gryffindor seal of approval, so we're practically family. What do you need? Just say the word. Could you arrange for a couple of students? Sebastian began, holding the hat, his voice serious. Absolutely not. No way. Before he could finish, the sorting hat cut him off, sounding almost offended. I am a fair and just hat. I sort students based on their qualities. Zero shady business, period. Forget about it, ugh. This holier-than-thou act, star. If Sebastian were born into the wizarding world, he might have been superstitious and bought into this whole authority thing. Believe in an enchanted object created by the thoughts of the four founders, but Sebastian's soul came from the Muggle world, where knowledge was accessible to everyone. He knew better than to believe in the absolute impartiality of any thinking being. The best you could hope for was relative fairness. If the sorting hat were just a regular enchanted item, a program following a set of instructions, its claims of fairness might hold some water. Too bad the sorting hat had its own thoughts. It could think, talk, and even write a new song every year. How fair could it really be? After all, the sorting hat was just Hogwarts property, and at Hogwarts, the headmaster called the shots. Sebastian couldn't help but wonder if the headmaster had some influence over the hat. Maybe becoming headmaster was the only way to know the truth. When these kids are all cookie-cutter personalities, sure, be fair and just, Sebastian conceded. But there are always exceptions. Let me ask you this. Sebastian grinned, ready to throw a curveball at the sorting hat. You've got a kid who's smart, hardworking, and ambitious, but also prejudiced about blood purity. Where does that kid go? Or what about a girl who's brave, friendly, loyal, and does what's right. How do you split those qualities up? There's always been kids who could fit into multiple houses. It always takes you ages to decide what to do with them. People say that whatever they achieve later proves you were right. But who's to say they wouldn't have done just as well in another house? Sebastian took a deep breath, relieved to have said everything he had been holding in, mic drop, yeah, that argument slayed the room last year. I bet I can throw a wrench in your logic, just as Sebastian expected, the Sorting Hat was stumped. There was no way to prove if a student would reach their potential in another house, and the hat had been around for 1,000 years, so it knew better than most that someone with a lot of positive qualities was likely to succeed no matter what. The hat finally opened its mouth, struggling to speak. Quiet down. It's early. Some people are trying to sleep. For the sake of Gryffindor, who do you want me to look out for? I'll only consider it if their traits are sort of similar to other students. And remember, I'm still a fair and just Sorting Hat, that's it, Sebastian was surprised. He thought it would take a lot more convincing, so all it took was a few questions to change the Sorting Hat's mind. What about the headmaster? Does the headmaster hold more sway than I do? Sebastian didn't have time to overthink it. He paused to consider and said, Vincent Crabbe and Gregory Goyle. If you can swing it, put them in Hufflepuff. Are you sure? The hat sounded doubtful. Those names sound like pureblood families. Are they really a good fit for Hufflepuff? Positive, Sebastian replied, his voice full of emotion. I've watched them, and they belong in Hufflepuff. Right now, they don't think too much. The only thing they care about is eating. Their parents are pushing them toward Slytherin. They don't have any real opinions of their own. Hufflepuff is the best thing for them. Honestly, Sebastian was dreading the trouble Slytherin was going to be this year. If he didn't step in, the two goons would get sent to Slytherin like in the books and become Malfoy's cronies. Sebastian had noticed during the summer that those two were relatively simple compared to other problem children. Sending them to Slytherin would be a lost cause. Better to give them a good, friendly environment while they were still somewhat pure of heart. At the very least, they could find some people who love to eat as much as they do. Of course, another benefit was splitting up Malfoy's little gang ahead of time. Sebastian couldn't wait to see how Malfoy would act without his bodyguards. Alright, if that's the way it is, then I'll consider it. The Sorting Hat agreed after a moment. That's just those two, right? Sebastian hesitated and sighed softly. Just those two. Chapter 80. I'll lend you the Philosopher's Stone to soak some water. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sebastian actually wanted Harry in Slytherin, but he knew it was a pipe dream. If he could convince the Sorting Hat, Dumbledore would be a piece of cake. Besides, Dumbledore was always biased against Slytherin. He adored Harry. There was no way he'd let him go to Slytherin. To keep Harry safe and undisturbed, Dumbledore had made people promise not to bother him until he was 11. But Sebastian had a realization: Harry's stubborn streak was better suited for Gryffindor, and he wouldn't fit in with the Slytherin crowd. More importantly, Harry needed genuine friends his own age to grow up with. In Slytherin, finding a true, ride-or-die friend was rare. Especially among the incoming first years, many came from Death Eater families. Harry would feel out of place, and if Harry was unhappy, Mia would be unhappy, and if Mia was unhappy, Sebastian would be in the doghouse. So Sebastian was happy to see Harry in Gryffindor. With that settled, Sebastian relaxed. He looked at the Sorting Hat, ready to test another theory. Sebastian straightened up, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. His whole vibe shifted. He slowly reached into the Sorting Hat with his right hand and closed his fist. A grin spread across his face as he felt cold metal against his palm. It was a sword hilt. Sebastian gripped it and yanked. Clang! A sharp metallic sound echoed in the headmaster's office. Instantly, a jeweled sword emerged, the blade glinting in the light, illuminating the room. Huh? Where did that sword sound come from? Didn't it come from inside the hat? Sebastian flipped the Sorting Hat over and examined it, confused. The sound of the sword brought the headmaster's office to life. Impossible! Phineas shouted from his portrait. You're a Slytherin. There's no way you could pull out that sword. The other headmaster portraits chimed in, debating the strange event. The argument escalated until the portrait of Headmaster Delis charged into Phineas's frame and started pounding on him. Sebastian, delighted, admired the sword of Gryffindor and did a few fancy flourishes. Then, he pointed the sword forward, grinning at the headmaster portraits. From today on, I'm the Slytherin Gryffindor sword master. Before he could finish, Dumbledore appeared in the office with a clear cry from Fawkes. He looked at Sebastian, who was pointing a sword at him, and a look of surprise flashed across his face. Sebastian, tell me what you need. I think I'm pretty reasonable, even without a sword pointed at me. Dumbledore joked, then returned to his seat, smiling at Sebastian. Even though Sebastian had a thick skin, he blushed, caught showing off. Hey, headmaster, you're back early. Sebastian grinned awkwardly, put the sword of Gryffindor and the sorting hat back on the shelf, sat across from Dumbledore, and changed the subject. Headmaster, I heard you have Nicholas Flamel's Philosopher's Stone. Could I borrow it? Dumbledore looked surprised. He hadn't expected Sebastian to ask about the Philosopher's Stone so soon after he'd gotten it yesterday. Oh, if you're interested in the Philosopher's Stone, why not try making one yourself? Dumbledore didn't answer directly, but instead asked him a question. Sebastian smiled. So much for being reasonable. Headmaster, Nicholas Flamel has published all the steps, but no one's ever succeeded. We've studied it in the Swann family, but we haven't found the missing piece. Only Nicholas Flamel knows when the Philosopher's Stone was created, and he didn't reveal it until after the Black Death in Europe. I suspect the refining process requires a huge amount of life force. That would explain why Nicholas Flamel said he refined it by chance, and couldn't do it again if he tried. Of course, Sebastian changed the subject, his eyes fixed on Dumbledore. I don't plan on testing that theory. I just want to borrow the Philosopher's Stone. Dumbledore's expression was unreadable. What do you want to do with the Philosopher's Stone? Refine endless gold. Without waiting for Sebastian to answer, Dumbledore continued earnestly. There's a Muggle saying, human desires are like Pandora's box. Once opened, they can never be closed. Sebastian, you already have enough money. Don't let the Philosopher's Stone corrupt your will. No, you misunderstand. I just want to use the Philosopher's Stone to make some water to drink. Sebastian pulled out a special cup and put it on Dumbledore's desk. Dumbledore was speechless. Did this kid think he was an idiot? Magic stone-infused water was a raw ingredient in the elixir of life, but drinking it straight was crude. Saying he needed it to water the flowers would have been more believable. Sebastian was a little helpless. He just wanted some magic stone-infused water to water his herbs and do some other stuff, like potion experiments, like saving Quirrell. Sebastian still didn't understand what had happened to Quirrell. When he first came to Hogwarts, Quirrell hadn't resigned yet. It was only after getting the photo album Sebastian gave him that he decided to travel the Muggle world, but Sebastian hadn't expected Quirrell to end up in the forests of Albania. What was going on? Which flowers made the prettiest specimens? Was he just that unlucky? When they met again at the Leaky Cauldron, Quirrell had been completely bewitched by Voldemort. During their conversation, Quirrell hadn't been possessed. Sebastian had probed him, but Quirrell seemed normal, as if nothing had happened. Sebastian realized that making things clear wouldn't help and might alert the enemy, but he was ready to help at the critical moment. But how and when was worth planning carefully. As Sebastian's mind raced, Dumbledore stared at the cup on the desk, lost in thought. Finally, Dumbledore spoke. Sebastian, I can get you the water you need. But you've heard that someone else has their sights set on the Philosopher's Stone. So, I need you to come with me. And protect the Philosopher's Stone.